Give it a few seconds to do its crazy morning thing. Yeah, okay, we're 3 minutes and 49 seconds in. Okay, all right, now it's going. And welcome to day 82 of 100 Days of Visibility. Mm-hmm. Right now, there's a very pleasing quality to my body's experience of my own voice. I can feel the stillness in my core, the vibrations of my voice sort of ringing through my bones into my fingers and as far down as almost my knees. It's a really neat sensation. I suspect this is normally what my voice feels like. I'm just particularly aware of it right now. Vibrations in my skull. I'm smiling as like this is silly and it's fascinating. There's such fascination in how all of this works. Also feeling a lot of energy, a kind of an activation, a heightening, an alertness that's running through from a little above my belly button, running up to the center of my chest. It's a little like anxiety, but it's more like excitement. Sort of this readiness, almost like I want to channel it into doing something. It's it's a wonderful counterpoint to the stillness that I feel in the background. So, yeah, I I just finished writing an application for a program. There's a part of me that's a little confused about how did I end up here. This is like I have no confusion about it. I have a very coherent story. I can see all the threads. I can see all the causal elements, and there's still kind of this question mark in my stomach, like something is invisible. What's going on here? So I'm looking at how in the style of business that Perry Chase teaches, she encourages using payment plans. There's a whole rationale behind that, but the important part is, there's something about when taking a payment for a program, it tends to get distributed. That's actually a feature, definitely not a bug. And I have a lot of experience with bookkeeping, tracking finances. I almost never spend beyond my means. Um, there's one period of my life where there was a meaningful exception. That mostly had to do with when my finances were intertangled with someone else, and we couldn't sync up. So from that, I ended up having a pretty hefty student loan. But even now, that student loan is dormant, and yeah, I have a skill it feels related to programming and to my mathematical mind that I can just track how money moves so that I'm not overspending. But I don't know how to track whether I can afford things when what I am paying for is sometimes memberships that are ongoing, and sometimes are payment plans that have a fixed amount. And so I've agreed to pay that amount, and so the money isn't mine anymore. But it may be sort of in the bank, so to speak. Um, so when I have that mix, and then what's coming in is also um, spaced out. There's a very practical mathematical puzzle that it sounds like arithmetic. It sounds like it's just a matter of some simple programming. I've done this puzzle many times. And what I have learned is that also when I ran a company, well, co-ran, helped to build. It definitely built the infrastructure for a company, um, for the Center for Applied Rationality. And I designed its financial backbone and made sure that we were legally compliant, that we had payroll, that our employees were having their taxes reported correctly, like really baseline stuff. It was registered as a nonprofit, and we had very specific bookkeeping requirements, such that if we were ever audited, we would lose our nonprofit status and possibly owe back taxes in a way that would hurt. It would have destroyed the company for most of the time we were there. Um, and So I built the infrastructure meant to deal with all of that. Um, so after trying to structure that and discovering this is in it, like you'd think this is arithmetic, but it's an insanely hard problem. It's absurdly hard. Um, we hired 2 different accountants and many different bookkeepers, like in succession, because my expertise isn't in accounting. I learned how to do accounting in order to sort this out. I learned about finances and financial law and accounting principles, how to do double entry bookkeeping, and the difference between cash accounting and accrual accounting, um, and like all of these different nuances. I ended up learning them. It was mildly interesting, but most of it was we can understand what we're doing if we can sort of feel the pulse of our blood. For me, there's this energetic core that's about feeling what's going on with the money and being able to say something like, here is how much we earned from our workshops, here is how much we got from donations, here are our expenses, and so this is how much, this is our overall cash flow. Down expenses in terms of these are the expenses that were specific to workshops, these are the expenses for salary, and this is other. Like even at that very large level, it seemed to me very valuable to be able to produce something like that quarterly, and we never were able to do it. We would have these huge scrambles, these panicked scrambles for our end-of-year fundraiser. The logic of the end-of-year fundraiser never made sense to me. The reason nonprofits have end-of-year fundraisers is because people who might be donors can lower what tax bracket they're in by donating to a nonprofit. So as long as they give a bunch of donation at the end of the year, if they've done enough of their own personal bookkeeping, if they know what tax bracket they fall into, they'll know how much to spend to drop their tax bracket. So they can, in theory, and in practice, this is extremely hard to do. I know of almost no one who can do it. It seems like the basic thing bookkeeping is for. This to me is a form of, I can feel some of the energy of it. There's a level of incredulity for me about what this is, what bookkeeping is for. It's for knowing how much money you have, how the money is moving. Why don't we know how the money is moving? That's the point, right? I found out, no, that is not the point. That may be the point in other circles, but I never encountered circles where that was actually true. So the whole point of the end-of-year fundraiser is that people can drop their tax bracket by knowing the amount that they need to donate in order to shift the tax bracket. But for what amounted to political reasons, our fundraiser would get announced often after Christmas, and we would run it in the month of January. And why is that? Well, I feel barbs in my emotional system when I try to dig into that, so I don't think I can explain it with the right kind of clarity that I think it deserves. So let me just note that is a truism, or truism, that is true. And it highlights something complicated about what it means to run an organization. So, but part of what that would mean is that every year in December, CFAR, the Center for Applied Rationality, would have this panic of, oh God, the fundraiser's on top of us. And for a number of years, we would run into a problem where we didn't have enough money in the bank to run payroll for a month or two. And we would have to suspend payroll because there was nothing to pay it with. Right? There's a kind of funniness here where technically that's not legal in California law. You're required to pay your employees when you've agreed to. It's not quite clear what the penalties are supposed to be, but like this company, 501c3 nonprofit, not paying its employees on schedule, well, how's it going to deal with that? Well, the answer was we just told people, yep, we can't pay you, so we hope you're okay because there isn't another option. And we'll pay you after we squeeze through our fundraiser and we have enough money in the bank, and then we'll make up for it. And we always did. But it was that close. And we did something that was only vaguely approximating bookkeeping in December's in order to provide a financial summary of how the company was doing, but not for transparency. It was the illusion of transparency. Like there was no attempt to deceive, but it was for the illusion of transparency in order to appeal to donors. The goal was not to feel the pulse of this living entity. It was to take more money. It was to feed it. It was to use it. This is a recurring point of friction between me and my co-founder. I actually started the financial backbone because I realized there was no way to extract from her what her plans were. So I figured if I could track the money, there would be some way of feeling what we're doing. The response is basically, nope, we can't do that. Why? Because it takes energy to create a functional bookkeeping system, and that energy is better spent in these more dynamic conversations. I now understand a lot better what's going on there. The game is that transparency is antithetical to certain forms of power. So anybody who is navigating the game of power in ways that require a lack of transparency cannot afford for clarity to enter the picture all the way down into the roots. It was systematic across the whole board. Ironic for something called the Center for Applied Rationality could not figure out how to be clear with itself about its own goals. But that's the truth. The bit of magic that I wasn't savvy to at the time, but now looking back, I can go, oh, this is so clear. I was actually getting the answer I was looking for by the difficulty. There's this fact that the bookkeeping was hard to do was a reflection of the company's relationship to money, and thereby its relationship to energy. That intransparenceability, the inability to become transparent, was its relationship to its own life force. This is an awful lot like the analogy for an individual. I'm not a financial wizard. Like I'm definitely, like I understand the theory very well. My mind, like I've got this. I've mentally got this. But in terms of subtle energetics, well, if I really had it at a subtle energetic level, I would have plenty of money and no looming debt. So demonstrably, I do not understand the truth of this all the way down. But I understand more than I used to. And I think I understand more than most people do. It's possible to do well financially without understanding money. So when I'm speaking about the energetics of money, the soul relationship with money, the resonance in the heart. What is it that what is it that makes it so that people can't avoid getting into credit card debt? That's not a force that's about math. It's not people's aversion to math. It's something else. Like making people better at arithmetic does not solve that problem. What tends to solve the problem is dealing with emotional tangles, because emotions are at the right level. They're at the level of the soul's relationship to, the way it connects to material manifestation. So when the analogy of a company cannot figure out how to be transparent even with itself about what it is doing with money, the analogy for a person is actually not money, from what I can tell. It's actually physical energy. Do you wake up exhausted? Are you able to go through the tasks of your day? When an opportunity arises, do you have a reservoir of energy to pull on? Are you getting enough rest to recuperate? That seems like the much more natural analogy for an individual. Right? And so when we're looking at inability to become transparent, what is that for an individual? I'm tired all the time and I don't know why. I've lived this a lot. This is a form of victimization I've embodied quite a bit. And I'm rooting it out bit by bit. How do I harness my own energy? And how do I cultivate it? And how do I make the cultivation on net positive? This is like saying exercise is a good idea, but if the energy that goes into making yourself exercise and recover from the exercise is more than the energy you get back from it, I mean, short term that might be true, just because if you're not used to working your body may have a lot of repair and strengthening to do before you feel the benefits. But if that happens after a couple months, then there's something wrong with the method of relating to the exercise. The answer is not in the exercise itself, it's in the relationship to energy cultivation. What is the drive that has you doing that kind of exercise? In some rare cases, it's ignorance, and then you're getting the information that you need. But in most cases, it's that the reason for doing the exercise is because you're supposed to. But where's the supposed to coming from? What's the energy fueling that? When someone is exhausted and they collapse in front of a TV and they watch the TV, is the TV actually energizing them, or is it distracting them from the feeling in their body of the exhaustion? A lot of people choose activities for recovering their energy that don't actually recover their energy. So just tracking that, right, that is absolutely vital. The inability to be transparent with yourself about your own energy use, that actually highlights something. That highlights the first point of contact. Where is that inability? Where is that unwillingness coming from? Not to answer mentally, but to go down into experience. Where is that unwillingness? Where is that looking away? Where exactly is that movement? So, if I had eyes to see, if I had these eyes to see, this mind, these senses, it feels almost like we have these 5 physical senses. It's considerably more than 5. We break them up pretty arbitrarily. What is the sense of touch? Like which sense of touch? The ability to feel cold, the ability to feel pressure, the ability to feel where your body is distributed through space, your ability to feel which way is up. Which sense of touch are you talking about? But anyway, that's a little pedantic. They can still run with the concept just fine by pretending there are five. These five senses, there's this impression like, oh, I'm walking around in the world and I'm experiencing it. I mean, there's just realized that's going to take way too long to say. I feel like I've grown new senses. And because they're senses, feeling like and having done so are, in an important sense, the same thing. It's as though I learned how to hear. Learning how to smell might be a closer analogy. Learned how to smell. And then I started to notice, there are things I can pick up, like, oh, there's food coming. How did you know? Well, I can smell it. What is smell? There's absolutely a range of senses that we don't talk about very much in our culture, but are very real. The vibe you get off of a room, oh, that's just extrapolated from your other senses. Yeah, the same way that all of your senses are extrapolated from your other senses. You don't have depth sight. You can't see depth. Depth is not a visual perception. Depth is extrapolated from the input of both mostly your vision, partially your sense of touch. You fuse all those together in order to see how far something is away. So how far something away is. Like most of our senses, most of our experience of the world around us are actually constructed senses. So in the same way, I mean, it's like saying, do you have an ear for music? Oh, you don't have an ear for music, you have an ear for sound. Music is something that is built on top of sound. Okay, great, but listening to music is different from listening to each sound that comes out of those speakers. And learning how to feel the music and be able to pick it apart and go, oh, and that's a trumpet. That was a fascinating choice, using a trumpet for this bit of ragtime. Like, that's clever. Oh, they just shifted key. How do you know they shifted key? Well, you're sensing it with something else. We build senses. So there are a lot of senses that are very, very subtle, which is to say they're impactful, but they don't present themselves in the senses that our culture knows how to speak about them. And a lot of these senses come across as magical. The sense that someone in the room is thinking a thought that is going to create discomfort. What kind of sorcerous sense is that? Well, it's doable. It's absolutely learnable. Some people have it masterfully. I just have the most basic level of that. I can feel the ripple. Anyway, so I bring that up because some of these senses make very alive a lot of things about what an organization is. You can feel it. It has a heartbeat. Right? Metaphorically, but there's a reason for using that metaphor. There's a pulse. It has a way of feeding. It has a way of being. And there's something like a spectrum from how benevolent to how vampiric the organization is. You can learn to feel it. Yeah. So I wish I had these senses at that time. A part of me wishes it. And I'm very grateful for the ability to feel it now. So looking at all of this, I register, okay, I am more sensitive than I was before, and I can feel the sort of etheric flow that is behind money. And I noticed that there's this very practical problem when I started with, okay, there's something that should be a math problem. This should, at most, a programming problem, right? But like, I know how to program. And And this is easy programming. This is not even running a computer program. Like, this is like when I notice the program isn't quite doing the right thing in the middle, I can do a shift. The problem is, how do I make it so that the flow of money coming in and going out is tracked in such a way that I know how to make decisions? It won't tell me what decisions to make, but it can at least tell me how is the pulse of my power relationship with the rest of the world. What is that? How does that feel? And I have it at a very abstract level. Do I have enough to jump into this program? Okay. And there's like a physical intuition, but that physical intuition needs feedback in order to hone it, in order to make the sense more precise. And bookkeeping is exactly the tool for that. Although, there's an aside, there's an important aside here. One thing I discovered while navigating the world of accounting and bookkeeping in nonprofit space in California, this may have been a very special social bubble, but there's a flat fact as far as I can tell. The purpose of bookkeeping is not to understand the flow of money. That's the nominal purpose. The actual purpose of bookkeeping, in terms of what organizations do, as far as I can tell, is to satisfy other organizations. It's a blame minimization technique and a method of appeasing stronger forces. Like in the United States, being a nonprofit in the United States, you'd better appease the IRS, because otherwise you lose your nonprofit status. So you've got to file your taxes, and you've got to show that you're doing the right kinds of bookkeeping methods, at least enough that it doesn't raise a red flag so that the IRS comes and audits you. Okay? But the idea of using bookkeeping in order to be internally transparent, at the very least, about how money flow works, as far as I can tell, that's almost not possible. Which is mind-boggling. Like, I can almost imagine a way of doing it. But it requires a certain attitude, a certain kind of energy on the part of the people involved. So the organization has to feel a certain way. Its soul has to be configured a certain way. The egregore has to want to be transparent in order for that kind of bookkeeping to work. I don't know that that's sufficient, but I can definitely tell it's necessary. That was the key problem that CFAR had. CFAR, as an egregore, did not want to be transparent. And this manifested in the energies of a bunch of the individuals inside of the organization, along with the energy of blame minimization. The energy of blame minimization means that you only seek to be transparent enough to get blame off your back. The goal of transparency isn't integrity. The goal of transparency is to avoid punishment, or at the very least make other people or other entities look more worthy of punishment. It's nuts. Like, where is the scrying tool that lets me, as one of the co-founders, one of the things that I really wanted to do was feel the life force of the company, to be able to tell, where does its energy go right now? Where is it being wasted, and where can it be better applied? Right. But one of the recurring challenges we had in that organization is that I was trying to bring a type of integrity that was incompatible with the style of power games that were fundamental to the entire context in which that organization had been born. There's a lot to say about that, most of which is not of interest to people who aren't in those social circles. And it amounts to a kind of gossip, so I don't know that it doesn't serve to get into the details too much in abstract, in just a blast. So I'm not going to get into that, probably not going to get into that in these lives, in this particular series. But the to the extent that like I am here to serve the eternal. And one of the aspects of that in all beings, when the eternal arises, part of what it clears in the eyes is clear seeing, clear knowing. Being able to clearly see, oh, subterfuge and paranoia is part of the basic backbone of this cluster here. Or over here, there's a kind of thing about walls of trust. That's the basic energy pathway. And where clarity gets blocked, that's absolutely key. That's absolutely in alignment with embodying the eternal. Absolutely. So that that will continue to radiate out as I continue to embody this and show up more clearly. But I'm probably not going to go into the details specifically for the nuances of these organizations, unless it serves, when it serves, which is my call. So I apply to this program, and like for me the whole thing is like there's sort of this network, sort of a network of mages. They don't call themselves that. I call them that. Like these are people who are working with more and more subtle senses in order to do personal transformation to allow the clarity of the causal level of being to enter the world and transform them and transform others who are ready for that kind of transformation. Basing business on transparency of that truth, the clarity of the feeling of the resonance of truth all the way through. Not trying to figure out what configurations of, do you want to feel the wealth that is your true heritage? Of course you do. Here is my story for getting a 7-figure business. Like the part of the soul that wants to vomit when we encounter that is speaking to something. So these people in a cluster, like in sort of this network, are all approaching business in this kind of way, in this way that I am learning to do, in the way that I can go, this solves it. I can tell, this solves it, this is clear. I want to master this. I want to make it so that my interaction with the flow of power of the world is in 100% integrity. 100%. And the thing that happens when that kind of alignment occurs is reasonably called magic. That doesn't mean it's in defiance of physics. But when we're looking at, and the whole approach, Perry Chase calls it magic-led business. If anything is going to be called magic in the world, the ability to create real transformation and the fulfillment of actual potential. That's a pretty good candidate. So what do you call wielders of magic? Witches, wizards, warlocks, magicians? Mage is a term that I personally like. So in this cluster of mages, one of them is an embodiment of wealth and perfect integrity financial magic. Okay. So turning to her, how do I solve this accounting problem? And I'm hoping, like it's a part of me kind of knows better, but I'm sort of hoping, is it like accrual accounting, but with some kind of shift to the register? Like I know these terms, I know how to do accounting. The thing is that I want accounting that works. I want accounting that is about the integrity, not about fulfilling a requirement. I've reinvented this thing many, many, many times, and it's always clunky. So what's the subtle shift? What's the spell? What exactly? I can feel the knot, but I don't feel how to untie it. And the answer is, oh, I teach that in my program. So in this funny space of, okay, so I'm trying to create an income. I have a bit of an income. a little bit. Okay. But it's not enough for me to fully embody the eternal yet. I mean, I'm not, let me fix that language. That was false. I can embody the eternal regardless of the circumstance, but my ability to act as a conduit for serving its manifestation in the world, there I'm running into some practical problems. And so addressing that, and in particular, having the resources with which to address it, that is like the center of my focus. And I see, like creating this program, like the purpose of the program, I've been hinting at the last couple of days, and as I feel into it, a transmission will come, providing a video that is, here is what this is. The cultivation of the subtle senses that allow actual interaction with the magical layer of reality, seeing truth clearly. What is it to actually be a mage? To know what you are and to know what the world is. Right? There's a lot of clarity to this. And for me, most of this is I want to run this thing. I'm excited to be a conduit for this. And I can also see, what it means for this to appear in the world involves it providing a resource for me to have the resources I need to be a conduit for it. So I'm expecting that to produce an income. And my hope had been to use that in order to work more actively on how do I refine my approach to magic-led business. So taking some income I don't even yet have and pouring it into, I mean, I had a little bit of resource left, a little bit left over from when I was working at CFAR, but not much. And pouring some of that into this program that is, I still don't quite understand it, but it sounds like it's about mastering the relationship to energy and feeling the pulse. How do you scry the flow of blood at all metaphoric levels, except maybe the physical? It's not actually physically looking for blood, but this sense of power in the pulse, the energy. How does the energy actually flow? Feeling that in integrity. It started out with this sense of, this is a practical problem, and I would really love for there to be a practical solution, because what I want to do is create the income, be able to respect the flow, and use my respect of the flow to reinvest in building my capacity for delivering magic-led business. Not teaching magic-led business, but using that kind of framework and embodying that so that I can be a channel for what I am here to deliver, what I'm here to serve. So the idea of using some of that resource to fix an accounting problem, there's a weirdness, like my mind going, what? And there's something energizing about it. Like it's making something real. So we'll find out. It's possible the application will come back as, no, not you. Your energy's wrong. Some part of me can worry about that. But regardless of what I think of the future, right now is all there is. Right now. So that's a snapshot of my own lived experience. And there's something joyful about getting to share that. It's almost like a journaling format in this case. Little bits and pieces of the resonance that I want to fully embody here. This is nothing like, this particular video is nothing like a lesson that I would want to give. Although I do have some fascinating stories about navigating when finance is actually about blame minimization. It is insane. It is absolutely insane. It's amazing to see how widespread that is. But I am complete. Thank you for listening.